Friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. The Last Jedi is one of those kind of films that tries to do a little too much with not enough time. Some characters seem underdeveloped, while others just randomly seem to disappear. Now, obviously, directing the second movie of a trilogy that was started by someone else isn't easy, so we shouldn't be too critical, but The Last Jedi definitely left me leaving the theater wanting a bit more. Which is why I was pretty excited to get a copy of the Last Jedi novel when it finally came out. And as I expected, there were plenty of small scenes that actually added a lot more to the movie. And in this video, we're going to talk about 10 scenes from the Last Jedi novel that kind of makes the film a lot better. The novel starts out as a dream sequence. Luke is on Tatooine with his wife, Cammy. They're both looking out at the orange twin sunset. Luke was searching for something that he knew was already gone. He was searching his past. He thought about his friend Biggs Darklighter, who had left Tatooine to join the rebellion and had died fighting the Empire. Luke thought about the holographic message with the beautiful young woman that was delivered by a beat-up astromech. He thought about how that astromech then had escaped from the homestead and how he had stolen away in the middle of the night to go find him. Luckily, Luke had found the astromech before the Sand People had found him. He also remembered the next day when the stormtroopers came along and seized the droid and took it apart. This is an alternative timeline where Luke gets a normal life. It reveals the inner turmoil he has about becoming a Jedi. It's a glimpse of a more peaceful life for him, but it's also a different timeline in which Chandrila and Mon Cala are both destroyed by the Death Star and the Rebel Alliance is completely crushed by the Empire. When we first see Rose Tico in the film, she's sitting by herself crying, and it's a bit hard to really relate to her. We have no idea who she is, and it takes us a while to make a connection between her and her sister Paige. In the novel, we are introduced to Paige and Rose Tico much earlier on, and you can really see how inseparable the two are. They're sitting together in the ball turret of the bomber that Paige would later be flying in. We can tell from their conversation that Rose draws both inspiration and courage from Paige, who she describes as a war hero who is always calm and collected no matter how terrifying the situation is. It's endearing how much Rose depends on Paige, and it makes the opening scene where Paige sacrifices herself all that more meaningful. We also now understand why Rose is so upset when Finn shows up. And why she immediately becomes attached to him. Rose is kind of like this lost puppy looking for someone else to latch onto. General Hux went from being a feared leader of the First Order who developed Starkiller Base, the First Order Stormtrooper program, and many of the ships in the First Order to some kind of cartoonish bad guy in The Last Jedi. It was hard to take him seriously between being prank called by Poe Dameron.
You and your friends are doomed. We will wipe your filth from the galaxy.
Okay, I'll hold.
Hello?
To being flung around like a rag doll by all the Force users in the First Order.
Did I go?
I thought it was kind of a strange choice for the director to do this. Sure, the individual scenes were pretty funny, but it really destroys the continuity of the character. In the novel, we see more of what's going on inside of General Hux's head. He's clearly a man of science. He despises the disorderly resistance and considers them a plague on the galaxy. But at the same time, like many Imperial officers of old, he also considered Force users to be inferior to the machines he had created. And after all, it was Starkiller Base that single-handedly wiped out the New Republic, not a moody teenager and a scary old man who probably smells like unflossed teeth. General Hux also dreams of one day becoming Supreme Leader Hux. So perhaps he's just waiting patiently for his moment to pounce and take control. There's a lot of tension going on in the First Order, and it's not just between the Force users and General Hux. There are two factions within the officer corps split between the older Imperial-era officers and the younger First Order officers. The younger First Order officers were trained in a completely different way. Everything for them was about numbers, statistics, and technology. Very few of them had any battlefield experience. They saw the older Imperial officers and their traditional ways as archaic. The Imperial officers, on the other hand, thought the First Order officers were undisciplined and too dependent on data to make good officers, especially because of their lack of battlefield experience. During the opening moments of the evacuation of Dakar, the First Order made a huge mistake by not deploying their massive fleet of TIE fighters. This was per General Hux's orders. The captain of the dreadnought Modin Kennedy actually had the TIE fighters prepped and ready to go.
We need to scramble out fighters!
Unfortunately, by the time he was given the command to deploy the fighters, it was already too late for his ship. When Rey first arrives on the planet of Ahch-To, she notices that Luke Skywalker's X-Wing is parked underwater. What we don't know is that her keen scavenger mind was quickly analyzing to see if it was worth anything as scrap. She quickly concluded most likely not, but with enough scrubbing, you can sell anything to the right dealer. You can take the girl out of Jakku, but you can't take the Jakku out of the girl. One complaint that a lot of people had about Finn was that it didn't make sense for him to become a deserter. After all, hadn't he thrown in with the Resistance toward the end of the last film? Well, actually no. Finn did everything he did for one reason, and that's Rey.
So I ran right into you. You looked at me like no one ever had.
In the novel, every time we see Finn, he's thinking about Rey.
Rey! Where's Rey? How's Rey gonna find us now?
As a matter of fact, his plan was originally to escape with Rey to the outer edges of the galaxy, far away from all of the craziness, and start their own life together. Now, this was all fine and all, but it really pissed off Rose that every time Finn said something, he was usually talking about Rey. She's definitely jealous of Rey, and towards the end of the film, as we can see, she develops quite the crush on Finn, establishing a love triangle and a very awkward meeting in the future between the three. Right before Leia gets blown up in the bridge of the Mon Cala cruiser, she connects with Kylo through the Force for a moment. What we don't see is the fact that Kylo Ren is thinking about all those times he overheard his parents talking about him behind closed doors. They were having conversations about how angry and dangerous their son had become. In the book, we're constantly reminded that Kylo is an angry and powerful person, but beneath that shell of emotions is just a small boy looking for acceptance. And the novel is constantly hinting that his exterior shell will break away at any moment. Whether it was from his uncle Luke or his parents, Kylo was never given a fair chance. That's why he's so angry and emo. One of the biggest conflicts in the film is between Poe Dameron and Vice Admiral Holdo. What the novel fleshes out more is how much it pained Poe Dameron to start a mutiny. It really shows us that his heart was in the right place. He stresses to his fellow mutineers that no blood is to be shed, and wishes that he had more time so that he could talk more with the stubborn Vice Admiral and get through to her and help save the Resistance. We also miss a gigantic shootout in the hangar of the Mon Cala cruiser. Luckily, everyone's using the stun setting on their blasters, and General Leia comes in right in time to stop everyone from killing each other. One of the themes in the film that really feels tacked on is Rose's obsession with class warfare. Rose originally comes from a mining world that was stripped clean by First Order soldiers, so she clearly has a lot of anger inside of her. But in the novel, her hatred gets to an almost uncomfortable level. She seems to associate any kind of luxury with evil, kind of the same way a fanatic communist would.
I wish I could put my fist through this whole lousy, beautiful town.
What's even more troubling is during their escape on those giant llama things, several people get killed, including a valet who gets eaten by a carnivorous fish. And she doesn't really react to it. As a matter of fact, she seems to be enjoying herself. So even though Rose cares a lot about Finn and her sister, she clearly has a zero-tolerance policy and no compassion for people with money or anyone who works with people with money, making her a much more darker character. So guys, those are the 10 things from the novel that I think help improve the film a little bit. Now obviously, if you didn't like The Last Jedi movie, this isn't going to change your mind all that much. But if you do want to learn more about what's going on in the characters' minds, and if you want to learn a little bit more about the background of the world in general, The Last Jedi Novel is not a bad book to read. We'll link it in the description below if you guys want to check that out. And don't forget to subscribe, like us on Facebook for more awesome content, and thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.